Welcome to our webinar, Traditional BPM Gives Way to Digital Process Automation. My name is Osama Mahmood, and I'm the Director of Professional Services for Ultimus, Inc. Digital transformation has become a much talked about term over the past several years, and clearly it's important. We all know the stories of digital disruptors unencumbered with legacy technology succeed on an unprecedented scale. So Ultimus has partnered with one of the preeminent research firms, Forrester Research, to take us on a three-part exploration of the topic of digital transformation and how we can become the next digital disruptor. First, our Forrester guest, Claire Richardson, looked at digital transformation from the BPM viewpoint. A few months later, in January 2017, John Reimer covered the topic from the viewpoint of low-code development platforms. The first two parts of this three-part journey with Forrester are available on our website. I encourage you to watch them. And today we have with us the Forrester Vice President and Principal Analyst, Rob Koplowitz, to introduce another viewpoint, leaving behind our traditional notion of business process management and process automation, and moving to a new thinking, digital process automation, and digital process automation as a path to digital transformation. There will be three parts to today's webinar. Rob Koplowitz will begin by introducing the shift from BPM to digital process automation and what it means for all of us. After we hear from Rob, I outline Ultimus's vision of digital process automation, composed process solutions, where we turn business processes into digital assets that can be composed and recomposed for the ultimate in speed and flexibility. Finally, we will hear from Brian Patsy, Managing Partner of Proceed. Brian will give us the real-world, feet-on-the-street view of digital process automation, its benefits, and return on investment. Of course, we'll be happy to answer questions as time permits, and you're more than welcome to contact me directly with your questions if you don't have time. Let me introduce our first presenter. Rob Koplowitz is one of the leading experts in the field of artificial intelligence, and he's also one of its biggest fans. He's a thought leader in the field of business processes, process automation, and business process management. Rob has had a long and successful career as an analyst at Forrester Research, where he's currently a vice president and principal analyst. Before rejoining Forrester in 2016, Rob had a foray into the AI world, working on strategy for IBM Watson. He's also the author of research reports titled Traditional BPM Gives Way to Digital Process Automation, which is the topic of our webinar today. It is my pleasure to introduce Rob Koplowitz.
Mahmood, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. I think this is a really interesting topic, and I think this is actually really interesting timing. You mentioned the work that was done by one of my former colleagues, Clay Richardson, and one of my current colleagues, John Reimer. And there has just been a tremendous amount of change that's gone on around digital transformation and around process. And I think that maybe process is a piece that we don't spend enough time thinking about, and I don't think we spend necessarily enough time talking about in terms of digital transformation. It's actually a really, I would argue, maybe the most important part of getting to digital transformation. And this is the reason that we actually took this research in a little bit of a different direction. We dropped the term business process management because we think it's very, very much tied to something that was important, remains important, but the vision has gotten much bigger. And digital process automation is about three things. Number one, it's about building a lot more automation than we've ever built before with business process management. We have to do it effectively. We have to do it fast. We have to do it really well. We have to do it in a cohesive way. It's about creating a really quality user experience because it's going to touch a lot more people when you build a lot more applications. And it's about embracing the future. It's about looking forward and saying, what are the disruptive technology trends that are going to come down the line that are actually going to have an effect on this? So let me start with the story of a pizza oven, and hopefully this will become clear in just a moment. So a couple of years ago at Christmas, my mother-in-law got a gift certificate for my wife and I to a very nice home store, and we looked out to buy something with this, and we found this pizza oven, this exact model of pizza oven. And we went to buy it, and it was great. The website experience was unbelievable. It was obviously very well thought out. It obviously was folks who had an idea in mind that digital transformation was important, that they had to compete with the likes of Amazon, even though they had started as a brick and mortar. They were an established organization. But from the very start, everything went wrong. They offered me a discount. They didn't give me the discount. When I asked for the discount, nobody knew what I was talking about. Nobody knew what the terms and conditions of the discount were. They promised me a delivery date. They didn't make the delivery date. When I got back to them and said, why didn't you make the delivery date? They didn't answer. When I tweeted, obviously somebody was following Twitter, and somebody responded to me who was part of their social media listening team and said, gosh, this is terrible. Let us fix it for you. They had no information that customer service had logged a request on my part at all. They went to look for it, and they found out we actually didn't have them in stock. We thought they did. Some of them had arrived damaged. We didn't update that system. I don't want to go too far into it. I just want to say at every point in this process that as a consumer, I looked at it and said, that's a broken process. That's a broken process. The website was beautiful. Everything under the surface was broken and was not properly automated. By the way, at the end of it, when I finally just begged to please let me go my way and have my money back, 36 hours later, I had this pizza oven from Amazon, and I knew exactly where everything stood at exactly every step of the process. So we're on this journey. We're on this journey to digital transformation. To me, it always feels a little bit like we're going to the moon, and that, you know, when we look back on it, we'll see all these steps that we took. We went from Goddard to Mercury to Gemini rockets to Saturn rockets, and we went to the moon. And those of us who are a little older realize this isn't how it went at all. What you're looking at is a radically different approach. What we all thought was going to happen was that we were going to take the existing technology that we were used to, that we were comfortable with, that we thought nothing else could do what these things do, and we thought that was what we were going to do. We were going to fly those higher. We were going to fly them faster. Only in retrospect does it become clear that a radically different approach to getting to the moon was the answer. And we think that this is going to be a journey that we look back on with digital transformation that will be similar. So I'm going to break down this eye chart for you, but this is basically our research and at Forrester and saying, why are you doing process applications? What are you doing these projects? What is the ultimate driver for them? And I just want to follow a couple of lines here. If we look at cost reduction 2 years ago versus what we project 2 years out, it goes from 30% to 7%. Doesn't mean that the things we did for cost reduction weren't good. Doesn't mean they weren't important. But the drivers, what's happening when we fund these projects and what we're selling at the board level and at the executive level is no longer cost reduction. If we project out 2 years and look at digital transformation, 2 years ago it was 12%. 2 years ahead, the projection is 50%. Half of all the things I'm doing around process improvement 2 years from now will be to drive digital transformation. This is a huge trend. This is actually a really, really big number by Forrester standards. So what's actually sitting behind that? It's customers. So what are the processes that are being re-engineered to support these digital technologies? Customer serving processes, onboarding processes, sale-related processes. We have a huge amount of focus on customers right now, and we should, because customers are incredibly powerful. If you think about my experience with the one vendor on the pizza oven versus the other, I had a great deal of visibility, not only into pricing, right? We always talk about pricing, and now I can, go to the store and I have the device in front of me, but about understanding how well they were serving me completely end to end and understanding that there was a better way. So they weren't serving me well. Their sales-related processes weren't good. And this goes across the board. So I gave a retail example. You can take this into manufacturing. You can take this into financial services. You could take this into healthcare. Across the board, how do I serve people more effectively? And this is where the dollars are going, and this is where the emphasis is going when we look at these projects. So with that in mind, we're on this journey to digital transformation. We're doing it for customers. We're doing it to serve customers more effectively, or clients or constituents, depending upon what your organization, what drives your organization. And we're doing it with process at the center of it. And there's a reason for that. It's because process is hard. So it's really non-trivial to actually redesign your website, redesign your mobile experience. But to do it so that you end up with a true end-to-end continuous process that serves the customer all the way through the journey is also very difficult. So how do we actually do this more effectively? If we think about how we're serving customers, there is this unbelievably rich resource that each of you have available to you right now. And it's your employees, the people in your business folks that interface with customers and serve them every day. They know your people, they know your organization, they know your customers really, really well. And they're the ones that are struggling to serve customers. They're the ones that know this should be easier. If this were not in a spreadsheet in my inbox, this would be easier. They understand information roadblocks. They understand process roadblocks. For heaven's sakes, the lady who answered my tweet really understood all the roadblocks. She explained them to me very, very well. I just didn't believe they should be there. And they understand what's clogging up their inbox and causing them to not be able to serve people effectively. And they're not happy about it. They want help. So what's killing us? Well, we've got this world of capacity that comes out of IT. So if we think about the world of all of our applications and the things we're automating, on the left side, we've got these highly controlled applications. These are your standard things that IT has controlled, and they've controlled them for a very long time. And they're very, very good at it, by the way. But as we go out to this long tail of applications, how do you have more applications that are about business technology? I see here the term consistent BT applications. That's Forrester's terminology for business technology, and that's a term we use for technology that you're deploying specifically to win, serve, and retain customers. And adjacent to that are business-driven applications. That long tail of applications where people say, I am part of the process, but my piece isn't automated, and it's a problem. We can only build so many applications. We have a big problem with application development capacity. I mean, if you're on the phone, you've probably heard the words, you know what, you're in the queue, we're going to build it when we get to it, or you're on the other side of the thing saying, we will not build it until we have capacity. Nobody wants to say that from an IT perspective. How do we get to that long tail of applications? What's stopping us? We have lack of capacity, number one. We have lack of deep business knowledge. That interaction between the IT group and the business is difficult. It's time consuming. You end up with that game of telephone. I'm going to build this for you. I think this is what you want. It's going to be several months before I deliver it to you. And then I throw something over the wall and it's completely wrong. So there's a fundamentally different way of looking at this, but adding developers is probably not going to be the answer. Because in the US alone, we'll need 500,000 new developers during the next decade. If you go back to my chart with the airplane and the rockets, that is assuming we do not take a radically different approach, right? That is the standard path that we think we're going to take. But I think what we're arguing here is that there has to be something that is going to happen in a very, very different way and a very, very different approach to solving this problem. So what are the implications of the developer gap? You don't have enough of them. You can't get them locally. So I don't know if there's folks, on the line from smaller areas, but if you are in Europe, where that kind of big sucking sound is coming from, where the innovation centers are and where the hot programmers want to go because they're going to get paid a lot of money. The same thing happening in North America, the same thing happening in the Middle East, and Asia, of course. There are those areas that are drawing in all of the hot developers, and it's hard for folks to get them. And when you can get them, they're very expensive. And you also end up with this. So, this is literally something I Googled that said, show me a ridiculously complicated process map. But the way we used to approach these projects, not only did we have to bring in very expensive developers who were hard to find, but then you went through and you said, okay, we're going to spend multiple months going through and understanding every nuance of the process. We're going to start it with one of these maps. And by the way, as clear as this might be to you, and I suspect on this phone there's a lot of people to whom this makes perfect sense, it is not clear to the people that are actually heads down in one of the little areas of this process. They don't understand this, and when something gets delivered after 6 months of analysis and then another 9 months of coding, and it's wrong, that's a big problem. The other issue that we face is this is all done with the rearview mirror. When you actually say, how do you do it today? That isn't even the right question. The question is, what can we put in your hands that will give you a sense of how you can do it tomorrow? How do we start to think about these processes in a fundamentally different way? So how do we approach this differently? In 2014, we were all about cost reduction. I want just a quick explanation of this graph. The horizontal is a line is obviously time, but on the left, what we have is alignment with the customer-obsessed operated model. This is how do you build things with an eye towards everything serving your customers more effectively. So in 2014, this comes directly from our data, we were about cost reduction. The IT organization, along with sometimes a BPM center of excellence, led the process. The business participated. We really were trying very hard to get the business to participate. The majority of applications that we built were built for employees and actually to drive efficiencies that actually drove cost reduction among our employees. We were very methodical and we were very rigid in our approach. If we think about it today, what are folks doing today? We've got this kind of business IT-led group that's about customer experience. Doesn't matter if you're building an application that's going to be customer-facing. It's an application that ultimately helps your organization serve customers more effectively. We're about cross-channel. We no longer make the assumption that people are going to call us on the telephone to get information. They're going to interface with us on their terms. They're going to interface with us through websites. They're going to interface with us through mobile devices. Increasingly, we're going to have to think about them interfacing to us through things like voice. And we're becoming increasingly experimental and innovative. So we're trying new things, particularly around some of these new interaction models. If we project 2 years forward, where people are really thinking about digital transformation, that radically different approach of how do we get there, it becomes business-led, increasingly business-developed. Many of the tools that you actually have access to today are things that you can build an incredibly complex, robust, powerful application, even if you don't come from a coding background. They're leveraging low code, sometimes no code, declarative models, and you're putting a tremendous amount of power into the hands of the users and really only using IT under some instances for providing some guardrails, maybe some more difficult integrations, things like that. Folks are looking at things like AI, and they are designing for rapid business change. So again, that idea of build out something really complex and deliver this big bang has given way to bring in a minimum viable product, see how it works, and then iterate the heck out of it. Keep changing it, keep adding on to it, and then connect it to other processes when and how the time is right. So how does this new world look if we think about our app dev capacity? Before, we see low code and a highly repeatable approach holding the promise to fill the gap. We can build more, we can build more consistently, and we can build with a better experience, and we can put the power into the hands of the business users and really start to think about customer, customer, customer all the way up throughout the process. Albert Einstein, it is attributed to him that he said everything should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. And that's how we're thinking about application development now. There was a time when we thought we wanted an amazing amount of deep control over everything we did. So this, for the young folks in the audience, this is a graphic equalizer. It used to be one of these on your stereo so you could get the sound to be exactly what you wanted it to be. Unfortunately, that usually meant that you ended up with a big old mess. And we see the same thing in terms of giving people ultimate power around what they will do with an application development environment. Give them all the power that they need, and they may well create a big old mess. And we're kind of moving into this world where, you know, the question becomes more around, more around, should I just do it for you in a way that actually is beautiful? And go back into the analogy of sound, we don't have all those knobs anymore. We actually have a really, you know, a whole lot of technologies that are very beautiful, they're very elegant, and they're very well designed to do something in a way that appeals to most people. It's repeatable, more of a factory type approach that we'll hear about. I want to close out with just a couple of thoughts here, and that's around a glimpse of the future. Selma mentioned that I do spend a fair amount of my time with artificial intelligence, and I've actually applied a lot of that into our digital process automation research. We found three emerging trends that we think are very interesting. So number one, we think increasingly AI will come into the world of process automation around new types of interfaces. So there might be instances where a chat or a voice interface is the exact way to actually move a project forward or get a piece of critical information. Cognitive expertise is coming to bear in the form of either AI-enabled capabilities that do things like extend existing technologies around understanding unstructured content, or extending analytical types of analysis that's going on with things like fraud detection, or even bringing in third-party sources that understand something really well in the form of healthcare augmentation or compliance augmentation, but being able to integrate these into your experience. And then lastly, actually tuning processes, getting deeper and deeper understanding into how processes are running and where they might be breaking down. We've always actually looked at this from an analysis perspective, but can AI kind of drive us more in the direction of being able to do root cause analysis and actually have some suggested remediation around process automation? So a great deal of work going on here. You know, we're a little out ahead of the headlights, but we think this is becoming important and will become very important over the course of the next couple of years. So what do we do to drive digital transformation? How do low code and no code fit into this? Recognize that your people know the business best. They're the people that actually can help you drive a better experience for your customers, your constituents, your citizens. Release that iron grip that you have right now that says only IT can build an application. Embrace the business as development partners. Make development process predictable and repeatable, because you're going to have to do it a lot. So you're going to have to do it in a very consistent way. And then lastly, build a support organization that will help make those folks successful. They're going to have to be trained to think differently. There might be folks who have different job responsibilities. Some people in your IT organization or your current centers of excellence might shift a little bit in terms of what their responsibilities are and how they support this effort. So it's not just going to be a technology solution. It's going to be technology and a fair amount of change management. So with that, what I'd like to do is turn it back over to Osama to continue on with the program here today.
Thank you, Rob. So as I mentioned before, let me introduce our vision of digital process automation. Today, we rely on software more than ever. Software powers every aspect of our business. And since every business change, innovation, or competitive response requires new or changed software, the speed at which we deliver software becomes the key strategic differentiator. Over the years, we've improved delivery time by moving from creating software by doing something this, where everything is completely built by hand, to this. We replace hammers with nail guns and hand saws with power saws. This is the thinking behind today's low-code development platforms and BPM platforms. That thinking is that every business problem is unique. We must solve them by creating one application at a time. But building things one at a time is slow. Everything ends up being slightly differently, and each application is an island that has to be connected to other islands. So while we do make some improvements in delivery time, the challenges that we have with software today. Things like complexity and cost, for instance, they don't go away. They become bigger. Let me give you an example. Imagine a world where every time you wanted to buy a car, someone instead gave you a piece of software and made you design it and build it. Well, that's really slow. Spend a lot of time. One person's car may look like this, and someone else's may look like this. They're so different, they would have to be made by hand instead of a factory. And it would take driver weeks to figure out how to use one, and then weeks to figure out how to use the other one. Nothing about it is just digital or transformative. It's actually the opposite. But that is what we do today. Here's another idea. When you want to buy a car, you go to a dealer or the internet, like the pizza buying, and say, look, I want to buy a car. I want to buy a blue sports car with 4-wheel drive and the sports package and a tan leather interior. BMW doesn't design individual cars where each car is different, each its own island. They design product families. They use standardized parts and they build cars made to order with robots. It's mass customization, mass production applied to build products tailored to individual needs. A single BMW factory can build like maybe 10,000 cars a week, and virtually no two are the same. That's how you improve delivery time, quality, and cost by an order of magnitude. And this is our vision of digital process automation. We call it composed process solutions. Allow me to switch from cars to the virtual world of software so we can understand composed process solutions. The key to applying modern engineering and automated assembly to business software is to abandon the one at a time thinking and find commonalities. Ultimus, we studied over 1,400 solutions that Ultimus has implemented over the past 20 years, and here's a sample. While they may look different, and certainly would have looked different 5 or 10 or 20 years ago, they really aren't. All process-related business applications have a pattern that we call a request, and each has 6 concerns. They all have a requester who applies for the service. They have a product or a service. They have associated documents for the submission. And they have the decisions or business rules or policies about who does what. And they have the process details and the history, of course, of who did what and when. And here is how it looks like in composed process solutions. In this case, we're looking at maybe onboarding new clients at a law firm. This is the 6 concerns that I talked about. Implemented as a standard CPS architecture, a uniform solution structure, a common design, all made in advance. They don't have to be created over and over, and they're laid out in a way that allows us to present a very large amount of information in a very user-friendly, easy-to-digest way. Here is the requester, the client, the service or the legal matter for which the client needs to engage, the associated documents, policies, and required information, and of course, the process details and history. So how can we apply this pre-built, standardized building block so that one solution is this new client onboarding, another is an expense report, or yet another is an account opening, or any other possible solution? And how can we do it in a really elegant way that brings us closer to digital transformation? We compose our software using digital assets. Let me switch back. Digital assets are things that Ultimus pre-builds once instead of building things once per project. As I mentioned already, these digital assets are things like architecture, solution structure, design capabilities that are made in advance. They are standardized and they're no longer created over and over. We extend this digital notion of digital assets to even things like business rules, devices, even content like countries and languages. We put all these digital assets in a common place and a common form and pre-wire them to work together. CPS ensures that everything the customers create, every new extension, is also added to this common pool of digital assets. Even solution data is added into this common pool of digital assets. So what do we do with digital assets? That is the next aspect of digital process automation. We compose using these digital assets. We make references to the digital assets that we need, and CPS generates our software solution the moment we ask for it. It's real-time, on-demand deployment. This is an incredibly fast way to create software we need with high quality because most of the work is already done. Our assets are pre-tested and are pre-built to work together. Deployment is instantaneous. But that's not all. The third aspect of digital process automation is the notion of software families. Instead of creating things one application at a time, I can create an entire family of applications just by defining the differences between them. There's no need to create separate versions of software for every business, or every business scenario, or device, or geographic location. Just define the differences. And family members inherently and automatically share data. They're no longer islands that have to be connected, and they can be changed as a group or at an individual level. Let me show you this in actual use. Here you can see a blank CPS solution. Even before you begin, you get a lot of value automatically. You never start with a blank sheet of paper. Now, I will compose the solution using CPS digital assets. In this case, I compose an application for opening new accounts at a retail bank. I start by declaring the digital assets I need for the requester, the person who wants to open a bank account. I need to know if I already have information about the customer. So I refer to the CPS digital assets, search by customer account number, name, category. I need to know something about the customer. So I refer to the CPS digital asset, customer details, and personal information. Finally, I need to know how to contact the customer. So I refer to the CPS asset, customer contact. And that's it. Now, the next time when someone needs the account opening application, it is generated on demand as specified. And these aren't just pictures, by the way. Everything is fully functional and already connected to all other digital assets automatically. I can search for a customer and load the data. We can identify missing information, and CPS guides me to the problem, and I can enter the missing information directly. We can upload the required documents. In this case, for his identification document, we will use the driver's license. And for a utility bill for his proof of address. We can view the documents that we just uploaded. We can add a comment. And submit the new account approval request. The next application in our solution family is a credit card approval process. To create that, again, I just specified the differences. In case of credit card, I need to include the CPS asset employment information. I need to define the credit card that they want. And I'll also define an additional document requirement, which in this case is an employment verification. Now, when Kevin Tiller comes back to the bank in response to maybe a credit card offer, I search for him. All his data available from my other CPS solution is loaded automatically. Even the documents I already have. No complicated point-to-point integrations, no data inconsistency, no data integrity issue. Just by specifying the differences between solution family members. Well, what if Kevin doesn't come into the bank? What if he applies online? Well, I've created a self-service version of my application a new family member, if you will. Again, just by specifying the differences. He wouldn't search for himself, and there's a different UI to guide him. Different names for the request concern, like about you, your request, your documents. We wouldn't want him to see the process or the history. And we're done. I can apply the same thinking in order to create application family members for different regions and also for different devices like mobile. Building and maintaining completely different versions for different countries and different devices is just too complicated. Instead, just define the differences. Well, you might have a different workflow step in one country and 21 versus 18-year-old as minimum age, and of course, translations, and an iPhone has the camera. CPS does the rest. And even those translations become digital assets that never have to be translated again. Now, I've created an account opening process, a credit card approval process, a self-service version of it, and English, German, and mobile versions. 8 variations in all. Incredibly quickly, built to change, and no solution island. An order of magnitude reduction in complexity. Finally, let's take the notion of solution families and eliminating silos a step further. With all the solution data in the form of digital assets, it can also be composed and recomposed for new business purposes. We can easily get business views of our process data, not just a process view. We can prioritize our work based on context instead of just what's in our inbox and when is it due, and sometimes it may not even be electronic. Think of a salesperson. A salesperson wants to do more than just wait to be notified that a request has been approved. Maybe they want to use the data in CPS families to see what's going on, or with his VIP customers. Then he can see that while one of a customer has a problem, you can drill down and see what the problem is. We see the problem, and let's see. It's a complaint that is outside the bank's service level agreement. Without opening a bunch of separate applications, he has available the contact information, so maybe he can call the customer and wish him happy birthday and assure that his complaint will be fixed. And while he's on the phone, maybe he can ask for a compliance document required for another process and have the customer email it and upload it, without any separate emailing and following up to do by the customer. After the call, he can even drill down and see where the process stands and who is holding up his commission. Now, in conclusion, our vision of digital process automation is composed process solutions. Applying modern engineering and automated manufacturing principles to mass customize virtually any type of process-related business application. Composing software solutions and solution families on demand by referring to common digital assets, and composing and recomposing these digital assets so that you can very quickly do business in fundamentally new, fundamentally different, and fundamentally better ways. You can transform again and again. With that, let me turn it over to Brian Pasley and a quick introduction for him. Brian has had a long and successful career in the field and in the greater business process management space. He was the founder and longtime CEO of Streamline Health, which he took from a raw startup to initial public offering. Brian expanded Streamline's business from healthcare document management to electronic content management and ultimately to BPM, and it serves some of the largest and most prestigious hospitals in the country. After Streamline, Brian founded and is currently the managing partner of Proceed BPM. As you may know, Proceed is a highly respected services firm specializing in process automation, management, and optimization. It's my pleasure to welcome Brian Pasley.
Thank you, Sama, for your introduction, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'd like to take this opportunity to discuss a practical application of what we believe is a game-changing innovation that can be a part of an organization's plans for digital transformation. But before I do so, I'd like to briefly provide an overview for this morning's discussion. First, I'll provide very brief background information about Proceed BPM. Next, I'll discuss the differences between standard versus specialized composed business needs, and then I'll also review some specialized business process attributes. Then I'll discuss a new innovation called Composed Process Solutions, or CPS, that was demonstrated earlier by Usama, and the benefits of CPS. Then I'll provide some practical examples of CPS digital transformations implemented in both a large and a small departmental organization. And finally, I'll provide a brief summary of the key points of today's presentation. Okay, now let's start by briefly telling you a little bit about Proceed BPM. Proceed is an organization that is 100% focused on assisting our clients to achieve business process optimization through the use of innovative technologies. Our mission is to use these technologies to enhance business process management methods and techniques, to reduce costs and improve productivity through digital asset transformation. In that regard, we've invested over 15 years developing and supporting business process optimization solutions. For example, we have served smaller organizations, such as a small U.S. county government department, to very large organizations, such as a $10 billion multinational company. Overall, we provide our services primarily to North America. Okay, at this point, I'd like to share with you our observations and experience in understanding the differences between standard business applications versus composed applications or processes that address very specialized business needs, and more specifically, discuss several attributes of composed business processes. To better understand what we describe as standard applications that often do not address the specialized needs of many organizations, let's consider a typical off-the-shelf business application, such as SAP, Oracle, Microsoft, and many other off-the-shelf applications. Many of these products provide standard solutions that address very specific needs. Examples are human resource applications, accounting applications, and financial management applications. These software products also provide more comprehensive solutions from supply chain management and customer relationship management, all the way up to enterprise resource planning software that allow an organization to use a system of integrated applications to manage their business. All of the previously mentioned software products fall essentially under the umbrella of standard applications that are generally available to all business organizations. Unfortunately, most of these off-the-shelf applications can be inflexible and very expensive to deploy. Most organizations also have very specialized business needs that fall outside the umbrella of available off-the-shelf applications. These specialized business needs typically relate to unique business processes that can't be addressed by standard business applications. For example, organizations typically have many business processes that interact between and among several existing legacy applications. These business processes involve the flow of information or documents that route from legacy applications through various company personnel, business partners, and even customers. A case in point, a unique business process such as approval of a capital expense submission can route through various personnel for approval, interact with a legacy accounting system, and ultimately flow through multiple departments, applications, and personnel. Likewise, unique business processes typically involve workflows that require the creation, approval, distribution, reporting, and ultimately archiving of documents and data. Think of these unique workflows as establishing what we call the 4 R's: rules, roles, routes, and reports. So, given the fact that can be numerous unique or specialized business processes within an organization, what are some of the attributes of these specialized processes? First, as mentioned previously, these processes really don't fit under the umbrella of off-the-shelf solutions. Second, they involve extensive use of spreadsheets, paper forms, and email routing of the information throughout the organization. And finally, these processes usually are very labor intensive with a high cost of execution. Okay, at this point, let's shift gears and introduce what we believe is a game-changing innovation developed to address the need to affordably automate labor-intensive manual processes within an organization. The innovation is called CPS, as Osama described earlier, which again stands for Composed Process Solutions. I'll also discuss the many benefits of CPS. So, for an innovation to qualify as a game changer, we believe it should provide the following attributes. First, the innovation must fulfill a specialized, labor-intensive business need that is otherwise unavailable or unaffordable. Second, the time to production must be a few weeks, not months or years. And finally, the return on investment must be a few weeks or months, and in very large deployments, up to a year. As a game-changing innovation, we believe CPS meets all of these criteria. From a technological standpoint, CPS provides pre-built digital assets and capabilities, or basically the intelligence to seamlessly allow process interaction. Second, a common solution architecture and data structure, as you heard earlier. And finally, a natural language configuration. Think of CPS as having the innovative capability to mass produce custom applications in quantities of one. All of these attributes help keep the cost down and the implementation cycles extremely short. Now, let's look at CPS from an affordability and time to production point of view. As mentioned previously, CPS fulfills specialized business needs not otherwise affordable from off-the-shelf solutions. Also, CPS can be implemented significantly faster because of its solution-relevant digital assets of pre-built code base. We're talking about hours to a few days, depending on the complexity of the application, rather than months. And finally, CPS offers pricing model that is significantly below the delivery cost of off-the-shelf business applications. So, how much lower is it? Most of the work in CPS is already done because it's composed with pre-built digital assets, so there's extremely high reusability. Okay, now let's discuss some practical examples of CPS's game-changing innovation in both a small and a large organizational setting. Proceed is currently involved in a CPS implementation in a small department within the county government of a state within the southern region of the U.S. This county government was dealing with very inefficient business processes within their relatively small Bureau of Motor Vehicles department of approximately 40 to 50 employees. In researching potential solutions, they were very frustrated to learn how expensive and inflexible an off-the-shelf human resource application could be. In addition, these solutions did not address their specialized business needs to automate their time card, vacation, and accrual tracking and reporting processes. They were shocked at the high cost of adding or customizing an off-the-shelf HR solution. As a result, they were resigned to continued use of their labor-intensive paper and spreadsheet-based time and accrual tracking processes. Here's a very simple example of the inefficient timesheet and accrual process before implementing CPS. Employee time was tracked manually each day and recorded on a paper-based weekly timesheet, along with requests for vacation, paid time off, and comp time. Employees also were responsible for calculating their weekly time totals and for tracking their vacation and paid time off totals as well. Employee timesheets, as well as vacation and paid time off request forms, were then delivered to their supervisor to review and to calculate employee vacation and paid time off accruals, and also review the many exceptions, such as avoiding two employees in the same unit from taking vacation on the same day. All the time recording and time off requests were kept in a notebook. Once the weekly totals were recorded, they were transferred to a master spreadsheet and finally uploaded to the state offices where payroll is handled. As you can imagine, the process was time-consuming, labor-intensive, and prone to errors in calculations. Okay, now here's the time card and time off accrual process after CPS. Time and time off requests are entered into an electronic form generated by CPS. Once entered, the CPS system automatically calculates time, accruals, and analyzes exceptions based on business rules established by the motor vehicle department. Then the time and accrual information is routed to the supervisor for electronic review and approval. Once a supervisor reviews and approves the information, the time and accrual data is automatically uploaded to the state for payroll processing. I can't stress enough how easily, quickly, and most importantly, inexpensively, Proceed was able to develop a customized application designed to meet the county's specific requirements using the innovative CPS tool from Ultimus. Now, in the brave new digital world of the motor vehicle department, timesheets and accruals are handled by electronic forms, which create digital assets with automatic routing to supervisors. The new electronic time and accrual process is now greatly simplified with automatic calculations and exception verification and automatic upload to the state. Earlier, you saw Usama demonstrate the many capabilities of CPS. So in the interest of time, here's a very brief example of the electronic entry form created for time recording and time off requests for the county. Let's take a closer look at the electronic form. The first section provides employees with pay period information. The next section allows employees to electronically record their time on a daily basis and request vacation and time off. It includes the day of the month, type of hours, and start and end hour for hours worked, vacation, sick time, etc. Once the employee fills out the time information, they simply click Add Time to record the information in the CPS system. Below the employee time entry section, the next section provides a weekly summary of hours recorded by type, whether regular hours, overtime, vacation, sick time, comp time, holidays, etc. Additional sections on the form provide useful information in terms of the grand totals for the month and year. All time recording information is now a digital asset that is electronically created, reviewed, routed for approval, and ultimately automatically uploaded to the state. At this point, I'd like to share an example of using the Ultimus solution in a large multinational organization. The organization sought an enterprise solution to resolve interoperability challenges between and among their disparate off-the-shelf and homegrown legacy accounting applications. The organization was using complicated spreadsheets extensively, in addition to paper forms and email routing for very specialized needs, including status notifications and approval routing that was not available from their existing legacy applications. And finally, the organization utilized labor-intensive resources, both internally and outsourced, to address their unique process-specific needs. After implementation of an enterprise Ultimus solution, the organization realized significant savings by automating their specialized business processes. Here are the results based on an extensive internal study they did of the financial benefits. The bottom line is that the organization achieved a reduction of 13.1 full-time equivalents, with a $566,000 annual cost avoidance and approximately a $2.2 million 5-year cost reduction with a 1.2 year payback. We think you would agree that the cost savings were impressive for the first 4 workflows implemented. Since then, the organization has implemented many more workflows with even more impressive results. In addition to the impressive cost savings and payback, there were significant intangible benefits. A few examples are increased visibility to important metrics, creating standardized process benchmarks, eliminating manual process bottlenecks that cause delays, improved data quality, and enabling a digital transformation in the support of the organization's long-term strategic IT plan. This concludes today's discussion of how game-changing innovation using affordable, composed process solutions can make a tremendous difference in both small departmental organizations and very large multinational organizations. I want to thank you for your time and thank Ultimus and Forrester Research for the opportunity to present. Thank you again.
Thank you, Brian, for these detailed insights into customer scenarios and the return of investment achieved by composed process solutions. Unfortunately, there's no time left for the questions, but please feel free to contact me directly for any questions. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for our guest speakers as well. Thank you.